Hello.
I'm here. I'm just waiting for our other person. There's no point in starting until everybody gets here. How are you?
Okay, did Cheryl tell you I have to be done at 5?
What time zone are you in? No.
8 o'clock your time.
Okay, no problem.
I have a flight at 6:10. I'm not too far from the airport, but I'm going up to see a client, and that was the latest flight. We're a small regional airport, so it's not
Yeah,
like
got it. Yeah, I'm just waiting.
okay. Yeah, time is really like it's just class is at 3, and I'm always here at 3, and I'm
Mhm.
always waiting.
I know. I get it. We could start, but then it's just gonna have to be a
I
repeat.
know, I
Yeah,
know.
so unfortunately. Um, yeah. How's it going? Were you having to fly off to?
Just from LA to San Jose to Silicon Valley, I have one big corporate client, and I have not met them in person. So they're all in
Hmm.
town. They're all in town right now. So I'm flying up there to
Oh,
spend
that's
the day
great.
there. Yeah,
Oh, really great. Really, really great.
and hopefully find out if they have. I have, one guy has a couple more coached until these people. If these girls get the results that they're looking for, it will open. They'll advocate for me all over the company. But
Yeah.
they're the ones that don't have the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I get it.
They don't read the room. They're a fast no.
Yeah. And yeah, that sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they're just driven. They're just so driven, focused on being right, that that's understanding the impact of how it affects others around them.
Yep.
And one of them's like, I don't know why I'm not getting promoted. I'm like, well, do you know now after we did the 360? I don't say it that way. I think she's wonderful. She's smart and hardworking and disciplined. It's just, and it's a tough company. I work there, so it's a tough company to work for.
What
Okay.
company is it that you work for?
I used to work for Nutanix. It's a big tech company,
Oh, okay.
billion-dollar tech company.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right back
Okay.
while I'm
Well,
finding this. I'm gonna just, I'll watch the window and see, because my computer is right in the middle of the room and when she comes in. Um, so I'm just gonna turn on mute and move around and, when I see her join, I'll come right back.
okay.
Just because I might as well pack while I'm waiting.
Yeah, you could
I'm just
yeah,
gonna
that's
hit mute and turn the video off, and then when she's here, I will be, our place is tiny. I will never be more than
yeah,
10 feet
no,
from
I'm
the
not
phone.
worried.
Okay,
I'm not worried.
I'll be back.
Okay.
At what point do we call it, or what do we do? Oh, there she is.
She usually comes in 10 after.
Hello.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. You look as energetic as I feel, unless you're just deep
We've just
thought.
been waiting. We've been waiting for you.
Oh,
It kind of
apologies.
zaps me of my energy, that's for sure. But you're here. Okay, no worries. Everybody good?
Well, yeah, other than catch my breath.
Yeah, got it. Allison, you good?
Yep.
All right. So let's before we get started, anybody have any questions about anything we've covered to this point? Anything you need?
And a quick question,
Yep.
when you're getting the agreement, what if the client comes in and is like, their topic is crystal clear, right?
Mhm.
And so you're really going into, why is it important? You just play it back to confirm, like, you still ask questions, but let's say they're just really, it's a really finite thing, right? I don't know. I want to learn how to not have a zillion emails in my inbox every day, right? Or be stressed by it. I'm just making something up. I don't know. And it's like, great. Um, so you'll always ask a few clarifying questions, right? But if they're, because we know the presenting topic and the real topic are not always aligned, right? There's,
Sometimes,
yes,
not
not
always,
always.
but
Yes, and
sometimes.
not always, yeah.
Mhm.
So is there like I guess I'm trying to figure out is like, how do you know when you're there? Sometimes you might be there really quickly and other times it takes a while, right? So,
As far as
um,
getting your coaching agreement,
yeah, we're getting that initial subject, what you want to work on. I mean, because sometimes it could be really quick, right?
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. The way that we know that we're there, if you think that you got what they want to talk about, we're always going to get that. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. This is how I do it. I want to make sure we're on the same page. What you said you wanted to talk about was creating a meal plan. And what you really want is a meal plan specific with a grocery list for the next 5 weeks. Is that correct? And getting that confirmation from them.
Okay, got it.
And then if it veers away from that, which it sometimes does, then that's a hey, you could be like, I want to make sure you said you wanted this, but now we're talking about that. How did they fit together?
Okay,
Or if they say, oh, they don't, then you give them the choice.
got it.
Like,
Okay,
what do you want to which one do you want to focus on? Because we can't do both.
okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yes,
Okay. So you'll know you'll know um you'll know you'll have a sense of, okay, I get they know where they want to go. And then you'll get a sense as you're coaching, like, okay, it's deeper than what it is. So then that's the clue to kind of go deeper. As you said, sometimes it's not what they say that they want to talk about, it's something else.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay. How about you, Bunning? Anything coming up for you that you need?
Uh, no, just tired. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is clients, and I'm dealing with some people with some pretty heavy duty psychosis. So it's a lot of extra work, and so
Yeah.
I've been at it since about 7:30 this morning, because extra notes and extra requests and trying to find out how to do this. And they're on Virginia time from me. So
Yeah. And where are
it's
you
just a
located?
lot. Hmm?
And where are you?
West Coast.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I get that. Okay. So, um, today we're going to talk about how to build that trust, safety, and rapport. Both of you are pretty good at doing this already, so it should be a pretty easy conversation to absorb. One of the things that I want you guys to think about is how can we get better? How can we make it happen faster? What's getting in my way, right? Um, because I am a firm believer that we can always improve on everything, right? So, and there's also going to be some people that you don't get that rapport with really quickly. And that's where we want to lean into this conversation to be like, okay, what do I need to do for this person specifically? So let me ask you, why is building trust, safety, and rapport like one of the most important things that you can do in a call?
I mean, it limits how deep they'll go, how honest they'll be, how vulnerable they'll be, and also limits how far you can challenge them and help them see new perspectives, right? I mean, it's a shallow conversation. It's not coaching without it.
Mhm. What about you, Bonnie? What do you think?
Well, from my background, it's all about that relationship, that's well, at least in my philosophy of care, the therapeutic relationship or the rapport, depending on your paradigm, is the healing agent. You can pretty much talk about anything if the rapport is there. The other is, if I have a client that doesn't continue on, they just sort of drop off, I failed in establishing that rapport. So I, unless they're doing great and they just aren't coming and letting you know, but if they just sort of drop off or they don't share or it doesn't go somewhere, it's my job and my responsibility actually to develop that rapport. So in the psychology domain, it's non-negotiable and very unforgiving, this piece.
Yeah, and in the coaching domain, it's the same thing, right? So we can ask great questions. We can reflect back all we want. We can really listen. But if we don't have trust, if we don't have the rapport with somebody, we're going to struggle pretty hard to really have them, to have anything develop and to have them as far as connection. And we're going to really struggle to get them to progress, right? Movement forward is not going to happen. So when you think about this piece, we're thinking about connection. And sometimes people are really easy to connect with, and sometimes people are not that easy to connect with. And connections are going to be different based on different circumstances, right? So, and it depends on the niche that you're in, right? Like Allison knows firsthand, like they don't have time. And I'm sure, Bonnie, you know firsthand that that's all they want to do is just dump on you, right? Those are
Why I
the
can't get out at 3.
yeah, it's the two extremes, right? One, they won't stop, and the other is like, hurry up. I don't want, right? It's quick. So we want to assess, okay, what's their personality like? And what do we need? What do we need to do? And how do we need to approach them? And what do we need to create with them in order for them to connect with us, right? So ultimately, trust, intimacy, and rapport are all going to be linked together, right? So if we don't have that, then you're not going to get that transparency in your coaching session. You're not going to be able to get them to an awareness as quickly as you want them to. You may not be able to impart any of your comments without it becoming difficult, right? Or your insights, I should say. It's going to just be a really difficult conversation. So what we want to do is ultimately lean on our empathy and then this emotional intelligence that we're becoming aware of, right? So without empathy and without emotional intelligence, building that connection is really difficult. And so we have this conversation specifically because sometimes people just think that by them showing up, oh, I mean, they're right. Like I've had somebody say, well, they sought me out. Don't you think that they're just going to be open? And it's like, no, not really. They had like we have to create that for them. We have to create that safe space for them. So we want to be able to understand what it is that they're sharing and have them feel understood and heard ultimately. So
The
one.
only coaching experience I ever had,
Mhm.
she basically said, I don't have time for your SHIT. If you don't think I'm all that, I don't have
Great.
time to work with you.
Wow. Yeah,
That was my one and only time where I
I don't
had
blame you. And I don't blame you, because if I was talking to you
350
that
a
way,
month.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you know, the example that I like to share is actually one where I believe, so ironically enough, I believe in therapy. I think it's a great thing. However, I have done a lot of work myself, right? So the one time that I ended up going and talking to somebody, spilled my guts out, right? Which I usually don't do. I'm like crying, right? I sure you see this every day. And then I realize he's not alone in the room. Never did he tell me that, one, he was at home, two, that other people were going to be around, and I didn't see any headphones. So here I am. He developed the trust. He developed that connection with me to the point that he got me to open up, but he lost it the second I heard somebody else.
It's unethical.
1000%. And I never went back. And I have yet to go back. Right? So that's like a really extreme example of how quickly we can lose it. And just because we have it doesn't mean it's going to sustain. Right? So we want to make sure that our behavior is in alignment with that we're empathetic, we're stepping into their shoes, and that we say what we're going to do, right? If we have a scheduled call, we get on that scheduled call, right? We have integrity around it, but also then we want to make sure that there is, this conversation today is that also that we're not passing any judgment, right? That we're not giving them a hard time because we had a bad day. We don't want to create anything that's going to compromise the relationship. So that's the conversation we're going to have today, because it's a big one. And the ICF Code of Ethics emphasizes, creating the coaching agreement, and that in that coaching agreement, it includes establishing, trust and intimacy as well. So we have to be able to show concern. We have to offer support. We have to maintain a non-judgmental presence at all times. However, it's going to be hard. Sometimes they're going to say stuff where you're like, okay, and you have your own judgments around it. You might judge them for whatever behavior they're doing, whatever conversation they have, who they might like for president, right? Like, you might judge them, but you have nothing to do with any of it, and we got to keep it to ourselves, right? So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we handle all the situations that show up, right? It's like I gave this situation the other day about my client who was coming to me that wanted a better life. And then he started talking to me about part of why he doesn't get any work done is because he doesn't feel like doing it and he'd rather watch porn, right? So for me, I was like, didn't expect it. And he's still a client after, gosh, it's probably been a year now, right? But imagine if I sat there and I made him wrong for that. And it's like, okay, I get it. And like, he literally was kind of embarrassed to say it to me. And I was like, look, it's what your habit is what you want to do. Right? Like, but you're telling me you want to break away from that. So what can we do? Right? Because like and if I went with well, that's just kind of disgusting and gross. What are you doing? It would have been a totally different conversation. So we want to make sure that no matter what they bring up, unless they're really harming themselves or somebody else, right, that we're just kind of like, okay, it's okay. and then talk it through, right? So we want to make sure that we are allowing our clients to release, first and foremost, before the call actually starts, we want to make sure that they release anything that they need to clear, anything they need to clear before we actually deep dive into that coaching agreement. And so for you, that could look like any way that you want it to. So you could have them do a breathing exercise. You could have them tell you about your day. You could have them do whatever it is. That's the, how are you today? That's the, okay, before we get started, let's just recenter, whatever you want to do to make that, to look like. And it's really up to you to decide in that moment, is this going to be a 1-minute thing? Or do we need to take 5 minutes of our time together to just get them centered? And it depends on how they show up, right? And it's also going to be dependent on the client of, are they able to let go of stuff quickly, or are they going to continue to reverberate and bring it up because they feel that nobody's listening to them? And that's our role, is to determine, okay, what is this going to look like when they show up? So we want to make sure that anything that can interfere with the session is cleared. And we want to make sure that they, and if it's something that they keep bringing up over and over and over again, then that might be something that you want to state, like, okay, look, I just kind of want to have you realize, like, this is the same thing that you keep coming back to here. Every time you show up on this call, you have the same complaint. Is this something that you want to work through? Right? And maybe that then becomes your coaching agreement. Right? So we want to kind of keep track of what that looks like for them. And then the other thing, as you already know, we need to actively listen to them. So first step, create that safe space for them to speak into, to clear anything that they want to do, for you to listen, be present. And then we also then want to make sure that as they're talking to us, we're not distracted. There's nobody else showing up. There's nothing in the background, right? Like that fan for me is so distracting that I usually try, you'll see by, I could still see it. So in here, for me, it's okay. But if I was with a client, I'd have to turn that off. Right? Because like I want to just make sure that all my distractions are gone. And we also want to make sure that all their distractions are gone. Right? So if they're driving in a car, have them pull over. If they are in a space where they are not able to be present, reschedule, right? We want to make sure that there is nothing more distracting than when somebody's not with you fully. It's the worst thing ever. And you're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to get to where you want to go. So active listening and us being able to fully concentrate on what they're saying, only what they're saying, right? Like their body movements, all of that is going to come through active listening. And that is going to be one of the most important things for you to develop trust, is when they know that they're heard. And the other thing too, is that we want to make sure that through our listening, then we're going to have an appropriate question. And we're also going to be able to reflect back to them what they've said. And that's when they recognize, like, oh, they're really paying attention. And again, very few people in their life are paying attention to them the way that you're actually going to be listening to them. So that's part of our superpower, is being able for them to just, for lack of a better word, give us all their worries, everything that they're concerned about, and have us just take it on, right? So when we do that, they're going to feel heard, they're going to feel valued, and then they're going to want to continue to talk to you because of the fact that you've just built that foundation of trust for them. So we'll also use mirroring as well, right? Use their language only. Don't add other words. If you want to add something else to their conversation, please ask them first. Be like, there's something that's coming up for me, but that may not stick with you, but can I present it? Right? Or like, there's a word that's coming up for me that I would love to share with you. Is that okay? And I always say, like, it may or may not resonate for you, but for me, it's like screaming loud and clear. Right? And so we want to make sure that we're mirroring their language, their tone of voice, the way that their energy levels, their body language, right? If they're super high energy and we're a little mushad, then that's not going to work. We want to elevate ourselves to that, right? Unless it's over the top, then we need to bring them down like we talked about before. And of course, validating their feelings, right? We want to make sure that we have them recognize, like, it's okay for them to feel the way that they feel. We want them to make sure that we're being consistent, we're showing up, we're consistent with how we interact with them. We also how we follow through with them, and also that we maintain their confidentiality. Right? There's nothing worse than people recognizing that they just spoke into a non-safe space.
Mhm.
So the way that we present ourselves and the way that we show up is going to determine how the conversation goes. And so when we talk about developing this relationship, it's going to start with us and how we show up. Are we listening? Are we being professional? Are we not distracted? Is our environment okay? So like when I'm home, when I'm a single pup mom, the first thing I tell my clients when I get on the call with them is like, just so you know, I'm I'm home alone today. You might hear my dogs running around. If they start barking, I apologize. I've kept them, away from this room, but please let me know if it distracts you. Right? And that's like, we want to have that kind of stuff handled before it actually happens. Right? If that guy would have told me, hey, just so you know, I'm at home and my 5-year-old's running around, but they can't hear you, I totally would have been fine. But it was the surprise that I heard his kid, and I was like, who else is there? Right? And I was like, I can't trust this guy. He didn't even tell me he was at home with his kid running around. Right? It's about perception. So, any questions around that? Pretty simple, right? You guys are experts in this already. So, we also want to make sure that we positive reinforcement, right? Some people need the tough love, but also we want to celebrate them. We want to tell them they're doing a good job, right? We want them to know, like, look how far you've come. That's what's going to give them the confidence. That's what's going to show them the value of them getting on a call with you all the time, right? So we want to make sure that we're not necessarily hyping them up, right? We want to make sure that they know that we're paying attention. So when you draw on like the EQI assessments, well, once you go over your assessments with Cheryl, I want you guys to take a look at where you can build on the trust and rapport, right? There's some things that you're going to be able to think about in there in that report once you have the opportunity to sit down with her. So like where your high scores are and where your interpersonal skills are, and whether they're indicating a natural ability, right? And both of you are very personable, so I don't see you not connecting with people. But there's some people that, I could tell you in my previous life, or even like the doctors that I've worked with, I'm like, I don't know how you're going to connect with your patients. Right? And so we have to make sure that people recognize, like, we're all humans here. The hospital's a business, but it's in the business about being human, Like, let's take it back a notch, stop the science talk and get connected, right? So, ultimately, we want to make sure that we're creating that safe space, that we've established clear boundaries, and expectations, right? So that's going to be your role. You're going to have to really make sure that you're setting the boundaries for the relationship that you're creating with your client, right? They can't call you at midnight and expect you to answer, kind of stuff, right? We want to make sure that we set up specific agreements at the beginning of our coaching relationship. What's going to be included, what's not going to be included, what roles, responsibilities, right? If you offer text messaging, great, you could text me, but sometimes there might be days where I don't get back to you for 24 hours. That's setting the expectation. Otherwise, they're like, you didn't get back to me. And you're going to get this whole slew of, you're an awful person. You said you would get back to me, right? After a second. So we want to make sure we set our boundaries. We want to make sure that we always reinstate the confidentiality of our relationship and the coaching sessions. We also want to make sure that we have a non-judgmental presence, meaning that the atmosphere that we create is where they feel that we are accepting them as is. We're not here to judge them. That we maintain our reactions, we maintain a, like I say, we're Switzerland, right? We're neutral in our demeanor around it, even when things are challenging. We want to be inclusive, we want to be accepting, and we also want to encourage them in being autonomous. We want them to have ownership. A lot of times people are going to come here and they're thinking that they're doing something for you. Right? Oh, Lori, oh my God, you would be so proud of me. I did exactly what you wanted me to do. I ran those 5 miles 3 times a week. My response to that is, you didn't do that for me. You did that for you. That's what you said you wanted to do. But sometimes people need the outside motivation in order to do that. And our role is to flip that around, that it's for them. It's not for anybody else. Right? So we want to encourage autonomy in that way. We want to make sure that the way that we're facilitating the calls, but ultimately it's their journey that they're on. So it doesn't matter to us what actions they're taking. What we want to do is see them being fulfilled, right? So we want to support them. And ultimately, through this relationship, they're going to develop a sense of security and they're going to develop a sense of independence, because we're going to remind them that, look, this goal is for you. This is something you wanted to accomplish, not anybody else in your life. Like, this is solely for you. We also want to be responsive and adaptive, right? So when people, especially in our communication, so we want to make sure that we're flexible, and that when we're dealing with like a specific set of challenges, we're going to be hoping that people work through them, and each client is going to be different, and we have to celebrate the fact that they may have some differences, and we want to really understand that they're going to make their own decisions, even if we agree with it or not, right? So everybody's gonna have their own personalities, their own little quirks. They're gonna communicate differently. So we need to have an understanding of that and an acceptance around that. And that it may be something totally different than what we're used to. And especially, Allison, because of the fact that you kind of don't get to choose who your clients are, you deal with this all the time, right? Is that a correct statement?
No, most of my clients I get, it's just an occasionally, and even the ones that
Hmm.
I get through the companies, 80-90% of the time, I'm one, like I talk to them and then we have like 3 coaches and they choose between us.
Oh, okay, great.
So it's rarely that
Oh,
start
perfect.
coaching someone that I haven't built a connection with. Just recently, I had to do that with 8 people. And so that was unique, but I do connect, that's one of my strengths is connecting
Yeah.
pretty quickly. So, yeah.
Good, good, good. Okay, great.
And then, but I do notice, I will say, like, though, in those situations, the first call versus, it was only 3 calls. It was a company that, and the first call, between the first and the second call, you can tell that the level of trust and vulnerability and openness, because, hi, we're 2 strangers, but let's get thrown together right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And depending on who that person is, will depend on how quickly they open up.
Yeah.
But and for you, because well, I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say, and especially around the business component, sometimes people stay focused on that piece, but we know it's all connected. So I'm sure you also deal with life stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what I tell them. I mean, I coach a whole person. You're a whole
Yeah,
person. There's a TV show on Apple TV called Severance.
Mm.
And it's this guy is like, he's at home, and when he goes to work, when he walks in the door, they've done a treatment on him that he only knows about work. Like he doesn't even know that he's married with kids while he's at work. And so I use that example a lot. I said, let's just know that we're not, unless you've undergone the severance procedure, a lot of my engineers know this show,
Mm.
right? When I explain it to them, you're a whole person.
Mhm.
So I use that, we can't, I don't, it's really funny. You should check out the premise of the show, which is great for coaching because it literally is a guy is undergoing this thing where when he's at work, he can only focus on work. So he's severed into 2 halves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, emotionally. So yeah, so that's what I use that as a client. I said, you're a whole person. And so I coach the whole person. So that's part of our foundation, session is talking about that.
Okay.
Then
Awesome.
even though you're here I have a whole 3-page thing that we review and it's the foundation session, and that's a big piece of it is we coach the whole person.
Yeah, that's great.
That
That's great.
that you might have business goals, but you're a whole person trying to accomplish those business goals.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and I just totally realized what you had said to me. Okay. Um, what time is it for you right now?
3:42.
And what time do you have to go? 5?
Yeah, so 8 o'clock
Okay.
your time.
Okay. So let
I have a
me,
flight tonight, Bonnie, to go see a client tomorrow, and the latest flight I can get is 6:10, and I'm leaving. We live not too far from the airport, but yeah, so I have to leave by 5, get off at 5 so I can throw my
perfect.
laptop. Everything's ready to go. It literally is like all I have to do is and I'll pack my laptop and run out the door.
Okay. Then let me finish this up right quick and then we'll either take a break or it's up to you guys if you want to do your coaching session first. Um, okay. So the last few pieces about this, one is what we talked about already is reflecting back and summarizing, right? Being able to share back what they've said to you and in a concise version using the words that they used will have them realize, and it'll be a confirmation for them that you have an understanding of exactly what they're talking about. And the benefit is one, they notice you're paying attention. The other is when they hear it coming from you, they hear it back, and then they may hear it may either help them hear what they said or it'll help them hear it differently. It might land differently for them. So, and this is, based on the fact that sometimes when, it's just like our last coaching call, Bonnie was just flowing so beautifully that she's like, what did I say? Right? And it's one of those things that we want to be able to say it back to our client of like, okay, so what I hear you saying is blah, 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 right? Like, tell me more about that and like keep going deeper with them. We want to make sure that that we reflected back so they could hear themselves. It'll help us and it'll also help them. And it also confirms that we're on the same page, right? That what you did really hear is really what they meant. And that you're moving in the right direction for them. Also, we want to make sure we have regular check-ins with them, right? Throughout this whole process, we want to make sure that we check in about how they feel the session is going, how they feel the relationship is going. So especially if you have a long-term client, you want to just make sure, like, is this still working for you? Is there something else that you need? Right? And like, just because it was one at the start of it, it was one way, doesn't mean that you can't change the game a little bit up, 3 to 6 months kind of thing. Some people will do this by sending out an email with 10 questions. That supports people in being a little bit more honest. Sometimes people may not want to just kind of have that conversation, or they may want to think about it a little bit as to how they want it to move forward. So kind of keep that in mind about getting feedback from your clients and to see what's working for them and what maybe needs to be adjusted. And then you want to build a safe community. So we want to create opportunities for group interaction. Group coaching is a really great way of having clients recognize that they're not alone, especially if they're struggling. So, especially if you're dealing with groups or teams, you want to create opportunities for the groups to connect. And so we want to make sure that we foster that trust and respect, so that way they could share experiences and they can learn from each other, but they're not going to open up unless they know it's safe and that people aren't going to judge them. So that's for us to create for them. And we want to make sure that no matter what, if you are connecting clients, if you are doing group coaching, we want to make sure that the chair that we're sitting in is one of coach, right? So, and that we're there as facilitator, we're not there to give them advice or anything like that. And then the last piece that I want to share with you guys is the reflective practice. So we want to make sure that we look at ways on how to incorporate self-reflection for ourselves, self-reflection for our clients, right? We want to make sure that we ask, how was this time for you? Like, how was this session for you? Like, what was your biggest takeaway? There's a reason why these questions are there, to see if what we believe was their biggest takeaway is really what they got from the call. Also to see what the impact is on them. And the other thing too, we also want to make sure that when we reflect back to them, like, one is doing like the assessment part, like, how is this going for you? And then there's the reflection part of having them pay attention to what their thoughts and feelings are. So like, in this moment, share with me what's there for you right now. Like, go inward. Like, let's talk about what's there for you, right? And we want to reflect on things that are happening in the session and also what's happening for the client themselves, right? Like, so you told me this, but like, how does that make you feel? Where do you stand with that, right? And then the other thing too is that if you feel that it is appropriate and that your client will benefit it, you can also do guided reflection for them to help your client process through things. So you could do it at, before a coaching session. You could do it at the end. And that's, again, like, a lot of time you could do breath work with them. You can have them do a body scan, you could do Reiki with them as well. So we want to make sure that what you set up in place for them is something that they agree to, and that also is something that is clear from the beginning may be an option, right? Unless they bring it up to you. But if you're going to start doing, breath work with somebody, then you're going to want to tell them, like, depending on how these calls go, there may be times where we take moments of silence or, do breath exercises. How do you feel about that? And make sure you have their buy-in on that. Again, we don't want our clients doing anything that they don't feel comfortable doing. We want to make sure that they are on board with anything that we're trying to get them to do, right? Questions, comments, or statements? I wanted to make sure we have enough time for coaching. So anything come up that you guys need to chat about?
No, I mean, this is pretty standard.
Right?
Good,
Yeah.
good to review.
Good review. Exactly.
But not new.
Exactly.
It's contextualized for me because I don't get to pick and choose my clients in the job that I'm in. All that is done ahead of time and they just show up. So I have to be whatever they bring. And I have one client who's dealing with porn and I have to be neutral. And I have another client whose husband is dealing with porn and I have to get on side with her. So I have to, you're not neutral. You're on the side of the client in a sense. And so neutral for me anyway doesn't work. And I have to bend whatever way they're leaning to a point, right? I can't sell out myself or it wouldn't, right? But I can't shame the one client and then tell the other wife that she needs to, suck that up and quit being such a meanie. Right? So yeah, it's a delicate line and it's an exhausting line in therapy because like I said, I don't pick my clients. And they stay with me when I get rapport. If I don't, then they move on.
Yeah. Yeah. But also too, I want to just quickly explore it for 2 seconds, why you feel that you need to side with them as opposed to being a stand for them.
Well, I have to, in my view anyway, so there's a few things colliding at one time. So my counseling model is reflective of my elders. So in Canada, we call it First Nation. You guys in America will call it Indian. So I had an elder and he was the best that I had ever worked with. And he would say to me, I will back you till your nose bleeds. So whatever I brought to him, he was on side with me. He was my ally.
Okay.
So when I have a female client whose husband is into porn and she's in tears, I'm not going against the husband, but I'm leaning in with her about how awful this feels for her.
Got it. Now I understand. Okay.
Right? And the other one, when he's struggling with it, if I go on about how awful it is, I make him worse.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
totally. Now I
it's
understand
shaming,
exactly how you meant
right?
that.
Yeah. So I have to, depending on who I'm working with.
But also, I don't see that. So it's just a different language for me, I think, because for me, that's you just being a stand for like their best self. Do you know what I mean? Like he might be working through it, but he's working through it to get whatever, for lack of a better word, better, right? And she's trying to deal with the fact that her husband's doing that. And so she's trying to be in a better place. And you're just really being a stand for them to get there.
Well, and I think it's a different approach too. So because I'm contracted, I get a variety of people coming to me based on my contractor's attraction.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was coaching, I would be putting a flavor out. And theoretically, you attract in kind.
Yes.
theoretically, or at least in the zone of,
Yes.
right? And also depending on your level of development in it, then you may or may not choose your clients. Because when I cannot establish rapport with a client, I come into the session in dread. I leave it in dread. I come in dread. I feel dread all the way through, which impacts the rapport even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
So I know I can't connect, but it's not like coaching where I can say, you're paying me and blah, blah, blah. Do we need to talk? Like with those clients, I just have to try to figure out what will light them up. And
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. Understood. So keep that thought because maybe we could we'll have some time after Allison goes if you want to kind of talk that through. I'm happy to do that with you, even though I know you're really great at what you do. I want to make sure that we go on a quick little break so you can get in a space where you're coaching and not therapy. And that way Allison will come back. She'll have enough time. You'll have enough time to go through your session. We'll break down the call and then Allison can leave on time because she has to. We don't have a choice. Okay, so why don't is a good 5-minute break okay for you guys? Just a quick bio break and then come back. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. See you at 1 after.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
like those last minute things, you realize I didn't throw in a hairbrush or a comb or anything into my bag. I'm just like, because I'm just going for one night. It's like, you're just throwing everything in. It's like, oh yeah, I need to be able to comb my hair tomorrow.
Would be a nice thing, right?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, Bonnie, you're gonna have like 25, 35 tops. So
Yeah, it's
that'll,
not a big, it's not a huge topic. 25 should be.
well, let her, don't put that in her space.
Okay,
Let her,
sorry. I'm saying,
yes,
yeah.
that's okay. So target around 25 to 35, depending on how that goes for you. That'll give you plenty of time before Allison needs to leave. Okay, so don't feel rushed. We're purposely doing this way today so that we're not rushed. Need anything before we get started? Okay, great. All right, so the floor is yours.
Well, hi, Allison. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Did you have something that you were bringing into session you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah. So I'm someone who likes closure. A few weeks ago, we went to San Diego for the night, and I've moved from my neighborhood where I have all my dog sitters. And so I found someone on Rover, and I have great luck with the dog walker from there. And I met her, and I'm like, she's a little quirky, but for one night, it should be okay, right? We go to San Diego, and then I go drop the dog off, and she's overfeeding him, and I'm like, he's a small dog. I'm like, please don't overfeed him. And she dismissed me, and I'm like, if I could have, I would have taken him home at that moment. Like my spidey senses were going. We took him down. We went, picked him up. Everything seemed fine, and then he threw up. And I said, what did you feed him? And she showed me this picture. She gave him this meat thing with cartilage in it, and he was throwing up meat cartilage. He's a short nosed, small, he just, and so then he threw up his dinner, and we had to wake up in the middle of the night. And then the next Tuesday, he was struggling. When they struggle to poop, it could be a blockage, it could be, and the cartilage could be ripping him up as it goes through. So the next night, he woke me up at 10, at 2, at 4, and at 5. And at 5, I took him to the emergency vet. $500 later, he's okay. I have not told her. I told her that he was throwing up. She's like, oh, keep me posted. Never heard from her. Didn't tip her, didn't give her a review. I could chat her. I could give her a 1-star review, right? But that's not how I walk through this world. And I have to figure out, how do I either just let this go and be done with it, or send her some sort of message? But this thing hanging there with incomplete is just another more noise in my life. It's just one of those noisy things. So I'm trying to figure out how to be complete with this.
Hey, so you would like to stop this thing from hanging over your head and finish off with her, but you're not, is it that you're not sure? What is it you're not sure about as far as getting the closure?
Well, do I even need to reach out to her? Is there how do I get closure? I mean, there's multiple ways, right? So is there some just me letting go and just getting over it? I don't know, but I don't know. Um, it's like, sometimes when like the other person's never going to see it. So do I even need to include her in the conversation? Is it a teachable moment? Or do I just need to just say, I'm never going to use her again, move on? Like, I don't know what that path is, so I can just put this in my rearview mirror.
Okay. So you're feeling this thing hanging over you. And if you had some ideas around this, what would it then feel like instead for you?
It would just be less noise. It would just be complete. It'd be done. It'd be like a calm, right? It would just be not something else on the list of things that
Okay. So you've got some unclosed event here that's sort of nagging at you, and the goal would be to have some peace around that.
Yes.
Okay. So when have you, or what have you experienced in the past that has done this? Your statement is that you like closure. So what are some other times where you have felt this thing kind of hanging over you?
Well, there's two questions, because I've had things hanging over me, like when I was single and dating, right? You never hear from somebody, you don't know why, right? And you don't always get that closure, right? So, and sometimes I have, sometimes I've reached out, and it's funny, it was always the same thing. I went back with my girlfriend, it's like, you could have just told me. But other times you just have to learn to live with that unknown, right? And at some point, maybe there's just enough time and space that's to just forget about it. I don't know.
Okay, so you have a couple of ideas in terms of getting closure, whether you would actually deal with it, say something to it, or perhaps it's not worth it and you need to let it go. Is that about where you're at this point?
Yeah, it's well, it's even more layered than that, because like if I do reach out, what do I say? Is it is it a blah, it's $500 and you shouldn't be doing this, you need to listen to the owners, or is there a calm, teachable moment that's like, I didn't know, I know your intention is nothing but good, however, you should be, I was reachable. All you had to do was text me and say, can he get this, right? So there's the tone, there's the duration, there's the, what am I looking for from the conversation? Is it just me needing to say it? Do I need something from her? Though you're not guaranteed that. So it's not just, do I say something? It's like, what do I say? And then if I say something, am I looking for a specific answer? And then if I don't get that, does that mean I never get closure? So is it better to find closure without even engaging her?
Okay, so lots of questions, and the one that stuck out to me was, you know, what would be the reason for doing, what would you get out of that? You seem to be leaning towards the talking to her, but then I'm hearing kind of two minds on this. One is, wanting to be sort of cordial and be polite and just have something said. And the other one, there's a little bit of force behind it. There's it sounds like irritation behind it. And the idea of, if you bring out that irritation, oh, it cost me $500, you need to listen to the customer, kind of a thing. So it's to me, it's sounding like there are two minds behind if you were to approach this person.
Well, yes, but also there's still the option of not, because if I say something, what am I looking for out of this? Is it the act of saying it that's enough for me? Or is that just going to open another expectation that I'll not get closure from? Does it just perpetuate it, right? And so is it just learning to just, just fucking let it go? At this point, I don't think she's of harm to other people. But can I just live with that? And then if I do, what do I need to do to be okay with that?
So what if we followed some of these if-thens through? So there's taking action, not taking action, and if you take action, there's a few kinds of action you could take. So what one are you drawn to? And if we follow that through to a conclusion, what do you think you might find?
Well, I need to get out of me. And what just came up to me is I need to get out of me what I'm feeling, but do I need to get it out to her? Or do I just need to get out of me? Like, is she even part of the equation at this point?
Is she?
I don't know. In the past, when I've needed to get out things, I've written it and burned it. Is that, and just gotten out of me. So is it getting out of me that's closure, or is it getting a response from her that's closure?
Okay, so you've got a dialectic there. You've got two possibilities. So if we flipped a coin and the answer was getting it out of you, not talking to her, how would that feel?
Um, Speaking of my dog is in the room chasing a fly right now. So it's just, come here, little guy. Yeah, go lay down. Sorry about that. There's just, he's chasing a fly.
Mine are too.
Um, Getting it out of me would be, I mean, there's something cathartic about just getting it out and just getting the anger, right? Because it's just, it's $500 at this point, I'm living not month to month in the sense of being homeless, but my contract is on pause, so that $500, which is painful right now, it's
Hmm.
not the right time for a $500.
Mhm.
Plus the pain my dog was in for a week, right? So, um, um, so I think that writing it all out or typing it, I like typing over writing, typing it all out. There'd be some relief with it, but it could also raise my anger too, right? Putting it all on paper. So I don't know. I don't know if it's cathartic or if it's inflammatory.
So what a theme that I'm hearing in this, there's a lot of feeling at this point still about this event. And it sounds like you really care about your fur baby.
Yeah.
And mama's heart gets triggered when they're hurting or suffering or scared and we want to defend them. So that's coming through really clear. It's also really scary when something happens with them.
Well, I mean, this could have ripped their stomach, could have ripped their intestines. He's a small dog, and these pieces were, 2 inches long, and he's a short-nosed Boston Terrier mixed dog, right? So it's not like he's got a giant tract for it to just pass on through. Unfortunately, he threw everything up and it didn't go into him, but I mean, the consequences could have been really severe. So not even financial at that point. At that point, it's like, it's my dog.
Yeah.
This guy and I've been through a lot together.
Mm-hmm. Very important, very near and dear to your heart, and
Yeah.
potentially life-threatening.
Yep.
And I hear some frustration too, like she should have known better.
Yeah, it's interesting because none of her reviews, all the reviews are positive, and I just thought the worst thing that was going to happen was she was going to overfeed him because she does food is love thing, But yeah, I she lives only 2 blocks away too, so it'd be ironic if I run into her at some point. But yeah, and I don't know if there's two paths, right? One is write the really angry thing I want to write, which I've done with like a boss before. I wrote the really angry thing and then wrote the calm thing, right? So write the really angry thing out and then be like, I wanted to let you know that Kiwi was really sick for a while. It was a $500 vet bill to make sure none of that stuff was in him. And it could have been a lot more serious. I know you love dogs and I know you mean well, but you need to be smarter. Unfortunately, there wasn't more dire consequences. That's why you haven't here trading, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to give you a 1 star and ruin your business. Though I'm justified in doing that. I just think you need to be smarter. I was only a text away. I wasn't in a foreign country. I was just 2 hours away, 90 minutes away. So I think that even just talking it out now is helping like diffuse it a little bit in my brain too, right? It's just yeah, I am an engineer, and so things are often, very binary for me and very clear. And so when people do things that don't make sense, it's almost like I'm not on the spectrum, but I sometimes feel I have like on the spectrum responses, right? Where it's just very hard to frustrating to comprehend and understand. And that's just my engineer. It's very logical. 1 + 1 is 2. How did you not know that? So it's just but I can't make people be logical like me. And I don't know if this will change anything for her. And I have to maybe let go of the responsibility that I'm the one that's supposed to fix her.
So there's two things going on there. The first thing I would like to ask you is, so you role played with me and you imagined, you know, you used me as if you were speaking to her, and you mentioned quite a few things about um how important this is to you, and you know, and this mattered, and it could have been life threatening. And how did it feel to get some of that out, taking the positive road, the high road, let's call it?
I would say the higher of the two roads, but
Right.
not the, I wouldn't call it the high road. The high road would be to not respond, right? This would probably be the middle road. It felt good to just say it and just be like, and I almost don't know if I even, you know, I think what came out on that was, what is my, is this really gonna change her, change anything, a responsibility? Or is this gonna make this sweet person who really does want to do a good job feel really badly about herself, and then I would feel bad, right? So it's like, as we're talking it out, I'm like, I'm starting to lean more towards doing nothing, because I don't think it's my place to teach her. I don't think she's a bad caregiver. I think that she doesn't listen. She's on her own agenda. I mean, there was other things like my dog does not socialize with other dogs. Oh, but I have these dogs. We'll hang out, you know, and I see a picture of him with dogs when I said, you know, and he's, you know, he's doing better in that area. But so it's just, I think that what she's demonstrated is she doesn't listen. So I don't even know if she would hear me if I said anything. So again, am I doing it for her, or am I doing it for me? And if I'm doing it for me, does she need even to participate in that?
So is the confusion around well, there, okay, so you brought out two values. One was that saying nothing would be the high road, saying something would be the middle road. So there was a value statement there in not saying something, which is
To her, yeah, to her.
go ahead.
Yeah, not saying something to her would be the high road.
Okay.
And then the middle road would be to say something calmly, and the low road would be like, you could have fucking killed my dog.
There's a lot of emotion in this still.
I think it's down a lot since we started talking. I think it was a part of it was just, I'm a verbal processor, so just getting a lot of this out is helping.
So are you starting to feel like that is at least toned down a few notches? Do we need it gone, or do we just need to tone it down?
Well, I think what came up was, what is my responsibility in the situation? And do I need to own her response or her growing or learning from it? Or do I just need to let it go? And as much as I would love to make it a teachable moment, she did demonstrate her inability to listen anyway, and that she's of her own mind. So I think that I think only time will get that noise away, because I think if you flip the question to, is there anything she can say as a response that would get closure? And all she can say is, I'm sorry. And um and so I don't know, I don't know if there's anything for me to gain from that conversation. Because I know she's sorry. She's not a terrible person. She had a really bad judgment here that turned out to be costly and potentially very damning.
So as you're approaching this idea of closure, I'm observing almost like a mental hummingbird. I'm hearing from you, you know, from a logical engineer mind, and I'm hearing from a coach mind, and I'm hearing from somebody that likes higher purpose, you know, high road, low road. So there's a values piece involved. And I'm hearing about, you know, she almost killed your fucking dog. Right? So as you're approaching this problem and working on closure, who do you want to be ultimately in that process? Coach, a human, a dog mom?
Well, I think it's not an either or. I believe in and, that's the coach in me. I think I'm always human first. But I'm also, a teacher at heart, teachable, you want it, but it's also, but the question is, is she teachable? Like, is it really gonna matter if I say anything? And the compassionate part of me is like, making her feel like shit, because trust me, I could do that, right? I could go in there and be like, I could have ripped up his esophagus, I could have ripped up his intestines, I could have ripped up his stomach. Fortunately, that didn't happen. And I don't know what her emotional maturity is, and that could just, it could just crush her. And I don't want to crush somebody. I want to teach somebody, but I don't want to crush somebody. And since I don't know how it would be received, even if I took the middle road, I think that the human part of me would probably win out, using your analogy, just because he's okay, and that's the most important thing. And I won't use her again. And I don't think she's a bad person. I think she made bad judgment, and I don't think she's teachable. As I say to you, I just don't think she's teachable. She didn't listen to a word I said when it came to what I expected from my dog. I think that's how she walks through the world, and I don't think an email from me is going to change it, if I'm being honest with myself.
Okay.
So
So
yeah.
You are talking about getting closure. You've been talking about how you've been feeling about this, and you felt many different kinds of things from many different perspectives. But then when I ask you about potentially going to her, or you choose the pathway of, what would it look like if I said something, you're as concerned about how she's going to feel as you are about carrying this weight around with you. So as you approach getting rid of this weight that you're carrying, I'm going to ask you again who you would like to be in this, the two new roads that you've created, the one that's going to care about how she feels, or the part of you that is needing to get rid of this weight one way or another.
I think that, as I mentioned, the human side of me will always win out, because it's how I walk through this world. And I don't feel, it's not a victory for me to make her feel terrible. As much as I'd love it to be educational, I don't know if there's a way to educate without potentially devastate, right? I don't know if there's, because I don't know her well enough to know how she processes information. So, though I would be justified in any response. I mean, I think that's a given. How I walk through this world is with kindness and caring. And she knows the dog threw up. She knows she shouldn't have fed him that. And as much as in life we want to scream and yell and do that, it's just we don't always get to do that, right? And I think if I can live in the gratitude that my dog's okay, and that $500 isn't going to, it's inconvenient right now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. And just move on with my life and let her move on and just be done with it. And I think the biggest piece is just to forgive her.
So you've explored two paths, one where you get some closure directly with her, which branches into a number of pathways. And you also explored a pathway where you said nothing. And then I asked you about, who would you be in this process? And you had a number of different values pieces, being the human and being logical and being, in gratitude and those kinds of things. And then you did spend a little bit of time sort of talking it out as if I were her. So we've explored a few different pathways in this. How are you feeling at this point compared to when you started?
If it's like, I feel like if it was like a pressure valve that was, I feel like we released a lot of it. And I think what I came to here is that I think forgiveness is the thing, just to forgive her. The best thing I can do for me, I always say forgiveness is really a gift you give yourself, right? And to try to figure out how to just to forgive her and move on.
Okay, so what does forgiving her look like to you?
Well, I think I articulated some of that. She's not an ill-intentioned person. She just made a mistake in life. No, and fortunately, it wasn't a deadly mistake or a
Very
worse mistake. And sucks that my little guy had to suffer for, a few days, but he seems okay.
Mhm.
So it's just a forgiveness looks like just realizing that it could have been worse. It wasn't. She wasn't malintentioned. And that I don't think I'm not, I think by not doing anything, I don't think I'm putting anybody else's dogs in harm's way. That would be the biggest thing is if I don't want to make sure that by my lack of my letting go of it isn't, and I don't think it is. I think she's just not a fit for me and my dog.
Right. So if letting it go means not saying anything further and simply moving on, how does that feel for you as far as this weighted piece that you brought into our
Yeah, so
conversation?
when I started, it was kind of like this buzzing sound. And
Mhm.
now it's just kind of a calm. It's kind of like the buzzing seems to have stopped.
Buzzing has stopped. Okay. So do you feel how do you feel about where you're at with this? Is there um something else that you would like to explore as we sort of working on closing the session down?
No, I think it really is just work on forgiveness and then move on with my life. And delete, and I wish there was a way I'll have to check on that if I can delete her from my screen. So when I go in there to book my dog's walker, I don't have to see her. So that would be the other thing is that is there a way to eliminate her from my purview on there? Because I only use two people. They're both listed, right? So I think I need to see if I can remove her from my vision so I don't get triggered. So there's a way to do that in the app.
Okay. So there's the decision about being able to move on and let it go and still a little bit of residual emotion.
Well, I don't know if there is, but I would just rather not have to test it.
Right. Right.
I mean, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I've even pulled it up right now. I think because I've used my dog walker so much that she's not showing up on my screen anymore. So that's good because
Good.
it's filled with my dog walker. So I think it's no, in fact, I think that she might have blocked me. No, there she is. So I'm going to find a way to get her removed from my no, please close it. Okay. So I
So
will
you've
just
solved it.
well, no, it's just as long as I don't go to my past, but upcoming, um, the last recent, it's like, it only does like the last 5 and I've been using my dog walker so much. So she doesn't, so when I open the app to book my dog walker, she won't show up. So that's good.
Well, I'm very glad your sweet puppy is fine. I mean, it's heartbreaking when they're suffering. And I just like to say too, um I I really felt blessed with your decision making process and the level of value that you brought for her, even though she could have really harmed your sweet fur baby. So thank you for sharing that with me. And as we close out it, did you have any final words or parting words?
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm complete.
All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Uh, let's go Bonnie. Bonnie, how
Yes.
was that for
Um,
you?
there are short form questions that I would like to ask in the moment and I'm not sure if it's fatigue, but trying to remember how to word them in the
Okay.
moment. And so when I'm outside of it, I have all of these questions and things that I would like to ask, and they're very direct. But in the pressure of the moment, when there's so many ideas flowing at one time, I forget the wording of the questions that would keep them concise and open-ended. So I'm aware that I'm asking closed-ended questions, but it's because I cannot remember the way to put the question that I'm actually wanting to ask, which is
Okay.
frustrating for me because I
Yeah.
know.
And so then what happens to you? So you're asking a closed-ended question,
Mhm.
and then what happens?
Then emotions will start to rise up because I want to bless her.
Mhm.
I want her to have a genuinely fruitful experience. And I know, in theory, what I need to do in order to be appropriately present. And I'm not sure if it's the emotion rising up, which is frustration with myself, which I have to tamp down because I need to pay attention to what the client is saying. Otherwise, I lose track of the conversation. So I don't, so I can't tell if there's something going on with me or it's the newness of it. It's a very different approach to therapy. And I have therapy questions rising up because I'm literally leaving client into class that not even 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, long term, I can do more separation between types of clientele, but it is such a mind shift from therapy to coaching.
And if this was a therapy session, what would you have asked?
I would have focused more on the fact that she was, she's come to me with this heavy weight that she would like to leave.
Mhm.
And most of the conversation was about the other person's feelings and what the implications were for that person, not her own feeling better,
Mhm.
which would then be sort of rationalized by the engineering mind.
Mhm.
So I would have wanted to be more matter of fact and less questioning in that. And I couldn't figure out how to bridge it in a way that, because there was literally three things converging that it would part and then it would come back together.
Yeah.
And as soon as I would get to the emotional, we'd get into the engineering mind.
Yeah.
When we're talking about her fur baby potentially dying, it's a big flipping deal.
Yeah. And why is that? Why is it that when you tried to go for the emotional, the engineering mind would come up?
Because I failed to pave the way for the emotional piece that I was trying to get to and was triggering the logic piece, which for an engineer it's natural to go down. It was, and it's a safe
I
road.
disagree. I disagree at all.
Hold
I
on, hold on,
disagree.
hold
Yeah.
on, Allison. Let her talk, even if it wasn't your experience, right? So again, you guys are not going to give each other feedback or anything like that. This is important for Bonnie, okay? Just trust this process, okay? Okay, Bonnie, continue.
I was really feeling a lot of the emotion.
Mhm.
And some of it was Allison's and some of it was mine.
Mhm.
Because I'm also very protective of my fur babies. To me,
Yeah.
they're like protecting children. So there was a lot of emotion for me.
Yeah.
I'm on side with
Yeah.
and angry about somebody not listening and potentially harming a dog.
Mhm.
And the I wanted to explore that component of it because I felt like that's where the pressure was coming from.
Okay. And is
But
that
Go ahead.
No, go on, go on, go
I was
on.
just gonna say, I could not figure out. That was the path I would like to have gone on, but it's not my path. It's not my choice.
Mhm.
It's irrelevant that that's the way that I wanted to go. It needed to go the way she wanted it to go.
Mhm.
And I feel like I did a disservice by not dealing with the pressure point of it, which is, dang, she almost, could have killed her dog. Like that's a really big, but at the same time, I was also really touched that she was so concerned about how the other person would feel, and also very touched that she had that level of compassion in the face of something like that. I would be hopping mad. I would have had to do a lot of work to get to where she got to be able to talk about it calmly and even have an option, right? I just would want to come out fighting. So there was three things going on for me at the same time: my own empathy and identification for what she was telling me, sharing the concern that she had for the third party, and then also being really, really touched, like personally touched, with her willingness to forgive, um, um, and her ability to frame it, logically, without, spilling over the top or being irrational. So there's so many things going on at one time. I could not formulate a question.
Mhm. Okay, so I got all that. So what I would love to hear from you right now, knowing that you explained that you had your own anger, that you felt pressure, you felt tired, you felt um compassion, you felt um you were touched, you were empathetic, you were concerned, right? I got all of that. So now, if you can go back and ask the question, so remove all those emotions out. And Allison is in front of you right now. And you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be compassionate. You don't have to do any of that. What question would you ask her?
How would you like to leave this behind?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, this is the thing. You got caught up. So you did an okay job, right? Like you went through the process, you took the information that was given to you, you moved it forward. However, I can tell that the presence wasn't there, right? And you've just explained why that wasn't there, why I felt like you were struggling as you went. And this isn't a make wrong. This is a really great thing, because I want you to feel this here, because then the next time this happens to you, you're gonna be like, oh, that's right, I'm up here.
Hmm?
So where we want you to go is here. And the difference is you're talking about the engineering mind and the heart, right? The logical mind, right? So when you're in that logical mind, you're not allowing your intuition, which is coming from here, to flow. And so what I want you to do is take that brain off, and I want you to just be with it. And this would have been a really great time for you to be like, okay, hold, and just be there with you. Be like really straight. There's no perfection here at all, right? Like you're human, you're gonna have feelings. So if I was in your shoes at that moment, for me, when I realized that I was trying to put whatever word it is for you, for me, I try to be a perfectionist, right? So whatever that version that you have right now, right? I'm gonna be like, okay, hold on. You just blew my mind with all of this. All of this emotion that you have going on right now, like I just need a second to just be with it, because I know how I would be, and you're just really calm. Right? Because that's ultimately what you just said. Like you're like, how is she not angry? Right? And just acknowledge what's there for you. You're so used to being there for them that you're not being there for you. And I hope you could see that, because to me, it's so clear that you're like, you know, the structure of what you need to go down. And right now, this whole process for you is not going to be logical. This is a whole different ball game. So when you get in this, if you get anything out of today, what I want you to do is, when that occurs to you again, and it will happen again until you address it, right? I just want you to stop and be like, okay, hold up. Because again, we are facilitating the call. We have nothing to do with the content. But you can facilitate when you know you're not present. And that's like a, hold on, I need a second here, because what you just told me, I know how I feel about it.
Mm.
And I really just want to get myself out of it, and I want to be with you. Hold on, let's take a breath. Totally fair. And like, whatever your version is of that. And the second you do that, you're acknowledging what's in the space, right? You know this. You're acknowledging what's there for you, and you're able to just be like, okay, all right, I want to get present with you. Where do you want to start? You gave me so much. So like, you ended the call incomplete. You were almost there, right? So like, if you would have went one step further and been like, okay, Allison, I got all that. Got it all. I got that you don't want to do anything to her. You don't want to see her on your thing. You kind of want to forgive her. You're still kind of mad. You still, and like all that. Now what? And like, whatever question you just said that I can't remember, and I'm really sorry. But that question of, okay, how do you want to let it go? That's what you said.
Yeah.
That would have been the pinnacle of your call. So it's a matter of trusting yourself, and it's also breaking your habit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you've been a therapist for a long time, more than you've ever done this version of it, you know, of coaching. So it doesn't have to be that way. You can have this be however you want, as long as you're with them and you have that goal that you're trying to achieve. So again, this also comes back to your coaching agreement, right? And being like, okay, so let me ask you, what was your coaching agreement? What did she want?
She had this weight that she had right over her right shoulder that she would like to leave behind because it's nagging at her.
Yeah. And how does she want to do that?
Well, she laid out before me two paths, basically. One where she doesn't say anything.
Mhm.
And then one where she does say something, but the one where she doesn't say something, she does say something to me, but not to the person. So she role played that out a little bit.
Mhm.
Then at that point, she said, indicated she was starting to feel some relief just from speaking things out.
Yeah.
And for if I had a client in front of me at that point, I would have said something similar. I would have just said, you know what? This really pisses me off. And I would have sat on the lily pad with my client for a minute and just looked at this crappy situation.
Mhm.
And then I would go back to my other lily pad and ask, where do you want to go? Hang on a second. I don't know where these are coming from. Okay. So from I would have had some self-disclosure in that moment, but I feel like in coaching, we're not supposed to do that.
So you can acknowledge what they're dealing with. You could be like, whoa, like, you don't want to add, what you're thinking, right? So like, say I told you that, so you don't want to add in there being like, oh, I would go and beat her ass, right?
Right.
But
No, I
you
wouldn't
could
do
say,
that.
oh my goodness, that's like a lot that you're dealing with right now, and acknowledge it, right? But we don't want to fuel it more.
Right.
I guess is probably the way to think about it, right? So stay right there with me. So at that end of that call, before you completed it, the best way on how to like bring it back around is be like, okay, so at the beginning of this call, you said you wanted to talk about how to handle the situation. You had two different scenarios on what you wanted to do. You told me all this stuff. Where are you now? And then she would tell you where she was and be like, okay, now what do you feel is your best approach? And is that true? And is that what you really want? Because you said that you were kind of mad. You said you kind of wanted to say something to her. You're trying to avoid her. Where are you really? And like, that's the leaning in. Totally fair.
Mm.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. It's again, more direct, and I'm feeling timid.
Yeah. And I get that. And you don't have to be so direct as what I'm saying. Like you have your version of how that shows up. I'm just really direct because I'm like, there's no time to waste here. Like, let's just get to it. But you have to recircle back. And when you feel like you're getting lost in your own mind, go back to your coaching agreement. Be like, look, you just shared all these feelings with me, and I'm just like, I'm kind of caught up here. So let's take a step back for a second. You said you wanted to either say something or not say something. Where are we with all of this now? Right? Just leverage that coaching agreement. And you did nothing wrong. It just needed to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It
Because
wasn't finished.
because how you were feeling is exactly how I was feeling, listening to it, and I wasn't even in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a missing piece for me, and I'm like, okay, it has to be presence, and that's why I asked you, and that's why I didn't want Allison to come into this conversation just yet, because that was your perception of it, and it may not be reality, and we're going to find out what reality was for her, Allison, on her side. But I felt like you needed to get to this piece in order for you to see how that played out for you in that call. So was this beneficial for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is going to be one of the hardest things for you because you're just used to another scenario. So when Allison gets off the call, we could 1000% like talk about this further. But Allison, I want to come to you. So thank you for allowing me to shut you down, first of all, because I didn't
No
want
problem.
you
I
to do
understand.
that.
No.
I had
Yeah.
a vision. I had
Okay. No,
something.
and my apologies for disrupting it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. But I want to hear from you now that you kind of heard a little bit more of this conversation. Where are you with what decision you're going to make?
First off, can I just praise her? Because I think from the first time she
Yeah.
coached me to now, orders of magnitude better.
Yeah, improvement, definitely, 1000%.
So I just want to acknowledge
Yeah.
that. I
And there's,
also want to remind you that I got an outcome that I'm very happy with.
okay, good.
So, and I would say that if you went to freeing up my emotions
Mhm.
that were, remember, it's been a few weeks ago, so I have gone through a lot of, this didn't happen yesterday.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
I have somebody in the other room, so I'm not gonna, I'm trying to maintain my
Yeah.
emotion too, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so it would have been to rile up my emotions would have disrupted the goal of the conversation,
And it
so.
wasn't to rile up your emotions,
But
right?
be like,
So,
but I was saying when she was saying that, she was feeling all of this
Mhm.
it's like, like, why isn't she more anger? I would be, it's like um, I'm having all the emotions on it,
Mhm.
but I'm calm in how I'm presenting it. That doesn't mean just because I'm not sitting here. So I was saying, I wanted to scream, fuck you. And how do you almost fucking kill my dog? I just wasn't using the animation just because of my situation of where I'm at right
Yeah.
now. But I was saying I had all that anger and I could just say fuck you and I could have done that. So all that anger was there. I just wasn't expressing it in the environment that I'm in because of the environment I'm in. I did see you where you were trying to replay back and I kind of said something and you kind of went around it a few times. So I could tell you lost focus. And I really worked this time on not spewing out too much at one time and really like I did last time. So I did see where you got lost in that middle there, but I mean, I processed it, which is what I didn't know I needed to do. And I didn't know that really it was just about forgiving her that I came to, because I hadn't thought about that. And
Mhm.
so while you had, it doesn't mean I'm not angry. It doesn't mean the magnitude of what could happen isn't lost on me.
Right.
But I did get an outcome that I'm very, very happy about.
Perfect.
And so,
Perfect.
that's the win here.
And
So,
the thing too, that I want to remind everybody, right, is when you're a coach and you've coached yourself already 20,000 times around this conversation, what my intention for you, and I don't want Bonnie to get confused, right? Bonnie, for you, my intention here is that everybody's going to have a different emotional state and how they want to deal with it and how long the time is and all that, right? You know that you deal with that all the time. That I don't want you to filter, and I don't want you to stop yourself from asking whatever's present for you about your intuition that's coming up. Right? Like part of it's not a problem, but the fact that there's only two of you, you guys, by the time this class is over, you're going to know each other very well, that you're going to know exactly what the other person is going to say before you even say it. So our role here is to be like, okay, I got it. With Allison, she's good, right? Like Allison, you got it under control. You have everything under control. But if this was somebody else in your shoes with the same story, she would have to lean into that person a little bit more because they don't have the awareness that you have. Does that make sense? And that's where I'm coming from. This isn't an Allison thing. This is if you had
Yeah.
somebody else kind of thing. So can you
Yeah,
guys
and you
understand what I'm trying to say?
yeah, but I
Okay.
think you coach what's there, right? And what's there was someone who, and so, but you
But
could
this
have actually
wasn't,
say, do you have, are there any, for me, I think a question that would be okay is like, do you have any other emotions around this that we need to explore, right? And it could be like, because, I wouldn't have said, why aren't you angry? It was, I feel like part of you was like, why aren't you more angry? And trust me, I was, I also was sleep
Yeah.
deprived, and I
that's
also
a
was
fair question for her to ask to you,
yeah,
right? Like being like, and asking your emotional state if she
yeah.
feels, because I'll be honest, if you replay this back, I could see that you're like really, the way that it landed for me is that you're really pissed off and you're keeping it in check. Right? So for me, I even got like, okay, well, is she being 100% like vulnerable? It came as like for me, it showed up as protective of what you were feeling. So I'm like, okay, well, is she being really, really straight on how she feels?
Well,
And I get now that you explained it,
I'm in a
and,
tiny
and we
house.
didn't know that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And so I thought about taking this, I even said to him, can you hear me? So I
Like,
thought about taking the call outside, but then, I thought about moving outside, but then if the
yeah,
mosquitoes are out, right, it would have,
yeah,
because, so I'm in a situation just like you're in a situation where,
yeah,
but I also, it's been a few weeks, so I've gotten the really,
yeah,
that piece out of it, right? It was
yeah,
just how to finish it,
got
right?
it.
So I think that, so I've gotten 80% of the work already on it. It was the last 20% I hadn't done yet.
Yeah. And I'm
So
great that
trust me, the emotions have been there.
yeah, I bet. I
Yeah.
bet. And I think that that's where kind of like and that's why I understood what Bonnie was saying, right? Because we didn't know that part of like one, I didn't realize that you had somebody else there and you were literally trying to keep it that way, right? So if you play it back, you'll see what we're talking about. So it's not a make wrong at all. And
No.
you guys did a really good job. And I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. It's 7:55. So
Yeah.
is there anything else that you would have asked in this call that would have supported you? If you
No,
would
I
coach
mean,
for yourself.
I think that I'm happy with where I got,
Okay,
right?
great.
And so that's the important thing. And I think that it would have been fair to say, um, this is an emotional topic. I would have been okay with you calling out the discrepancy. This is an emotional topic. You seem very calm. Can you help me connect that? Is there something, am I seeing, and I could have said, I'm 80% processed it, right? I'm in a situation where, you know, I would have given you that information, right? But he said, but I don't think there was anything wrong. I think I saw where you asked something and I kind of felt like, well, you're pulling it back. You got lost a little bit in the middle. I can see that piece, but I thought you did great. I thought I said compared to last time to this time, just orders of magnitude. So keep going. I'm just going to say, keep going because it was great. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I would just say is keep going, keep doing it because you're doing great.
Awesome. Well, Allison, thank you for being on the call today because we know that you got to go. So I really just appreciate you showing up.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm trying not to miss any, right? I just had this, I just had this aha moment yesterday where I'm like, I got a class, I got a flight. But
Right.
there's a little airport, so it would have been an hour drive to the other airport and all this stuff. And so, yeah, to do a later flight, which I couldn't have gotten a ride, and that would have been $100 Uber. And anyway, so this was just like trying to find the
Thank you.
win. And I know we couldn't start early because of your commitment, so it was the best I could do.
Thank you. So you're free to go.
And then we don't have class next week, so we're off next week.
Correct.
Are we?
Yeah,
All of next week?
yeah.
all of next week.
You
And then
said.
I think I see you guys back on the
So are you
4th.
are you teaching the rest of the class? I mean, I just
No.
thought, yeah, I just didn't know. I mean, not that it matters, I just didn't know, yeah.
So there's 3 of us and we all kind of step in on every class so that way
Okay.
you get a different feel for different people, different like just different brains,
Yeah.
to be honest.
And then before I jump, Bonnie, do you have an email address?
I do.
Can I'm trying to do something for you. I'm not telling you what it is yet because I don't know if I can do it, but
Oh,
anyway, what's your email
I'll
address?
say it and then I'll spell it. It's Camille, or sorry, that's my old one. stgeorge.bon@gmail.com, and it's stgeorge.bon, short for Bonnie, @gmail.com.
Okay.
My former name. I'm going to my new name, but for now that will arrive at my email.
And then Lori, I had to go through Cheryl to tell her, is there a way to reach you in between calls if I need to for anything?
yeah,
Are you in the portal or do we just reach out to you and,
I'm in the portal actually. Yeah,
okay.
I should be. Otherwise, feel free to, you could email me or whatever you want to
Yeah,
do.
so
No
because I
problem.
wanted to let you know about like today ahead of time. And I
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh,
able
thank
to
you.
do it. I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, no problem.
So I didn't
Okay.
realize we were off next week, and then we're on the week after, and then off the week after that again.
Yep. Which is good
Okay.
because next week I'm gonna use that time to catch up because I said I lost all the work I did. So I'm gonna use that same time, but use it for my homework.
I know how that feels because the same thing happened to me. I was so mad.
You know what? The first,
Cheryl said early on, make sure you save it to your computer or it won't
I
save.
thought I did, and I'm a techie. I thought, I mean, I
Me
thought I
too, and I
did.
screw it up all the time.
You know, my girlfriend and I
thought
were talking, there's just too many moving parts in life and I want to go back sometimes. I don't want to be 23 again, but I do remember at 23, it was like so simple, pay your rent, pay your utility bill and move on with life, right? You know,
46 was awesome.
I don't, it's all awesome. Everyone's awesome. It's just, there's too many moving parts. It's like also owning your own company too, right? This is too many moving parts. So anyway,
Okay.
okay, guys, I will see you
All
in
right.
a week and a half.
Safe
Safe
travel.
flight.
Thanks.
Safe
Bye-bye.
travel. Okay, bye. Okay, so we have some time and I wanted to find out from you, how can I support you? I think you're doing great, so don't take it as you're not. You're exactly where you need to be. But is there anything that we can do in this time that would support you?
I'm not sure. You know, like I'm reading the Mind Shift book, the transformational book, and I'm reading, like I don't even need the reading schedule. I get up, I enjoy reading it, and I'm learning a lot from it, and I have shifted my approach to more of the thinker mindset, and I'm using that idea even with my counseling clients.
Okay.
With my counseling clients, I stick to what I know.
Yeah.
Though I am trying to take a more I want them to be more I want them to take more initiative.
Mhm.
I literally had a client say that she left her last therapist because the therapist expected her to do all the work. Next to my friend Christine, this is a t-shirt.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's the capstone for why I want to switch to coaching.
Mhm.
Because, right? So I've read all these questions, and when I'm reading the book and I'm thinking about the things that are being said, and I'm reading good questions, and I'm reading the lecture notes,
Mhm.
it all makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
And I think you know, that those questions work for me and everything else. And then when I get in front of the client,
Mhm.
they leave. So with Allison, the image that came for me was a tree, half of a tree. There was one lowly branch on one path, and on this other path it went all over.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at that tree trying to find the question that went with it, and there were too many. And then I couldn't find the way to word them. So some of the recommendations that you made were in my head.
Mhm.
What I asked, I meant that, but
Yeah.
that's not what came out. And it
Yeah.
got lost.
Yeah. Got it. So it might be that you're tired, right? You've had a long day. It's hard to think after you're thinking all day.
4 hours today, yeah. 4
Yeah.
clients in a row.
The other thing too that I would consider, if you haven't already, put a blast out there, or maybe some people that you trust, and just do some pro bono coaching. Just practice
Christine
only.
said there's a Facebook page that she's part of where they do just that. They just, hey, anybody feel like practicing with me kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I could.
So just it's going to be a matter of practice. Just because it's really hard. The only thing that's more difficult than going from therapy to coaching is going from consulting to coaching.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, because
Right?
everybody's looking at me, and my approach is very psychoeducational because I want to impart and then you carry the ball
Yeah. And that's
ultimately, right?
great because that's in alignment as opposed to consulting that they're used to telling people what to do. Right? They go into the solving mode as opposed to the discovery mode. So
Yeah.
at least you're on the discovery mode side, right? But it's
Yeah,
just
mental models. I share mental models because the
yeah,
more they have,
yeah,
the more options they have
yeah.
in solving problems, right? So I'm trying to expand the thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So that's a good thing. I just think that you just need different um so there are a couple things here at play. One, it's really weird to coach in this platform knowing that I'm listening and that I'm going to talk to you about how you did your performance, right? Like I even get really weirded out by it. It took me a really long time to get used to it. Um, two, coaching the same person over and over and over again is a little difficult because different people are going to give you different responses. You'll be able to navigate it in a different way. And also, when you're coaching another coach, they know what you're doing and they actually facilitate it. And sometimes them facilitating it may or may not hinder your process.
Which it is.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If I were you, if I were in your shoes, take next week during the time of class and literally schedule a couple 30-minute sessions free of charge. Because you're in this class, they will count as paid hours of coaching. Right? And have it be not another coach. Just have it be somebody.
How do I document that for you?
So there's actually, if you go into the portal, you'll see that there's a is it in the packet? As a coach, we need, just like how I'm sure you have ways on how you track stuff, we can easily do it in a Excel file where you just track how many pro bono hours you do and how many paid hours you do. And say you want to get your ACC, which you do, because you're in this class and you're gearing yourself up for that. You need 25 hours of pro bono and 75 hours of paid to sit for that exam. So you're going to need
The
to
first
track.
time I'm hearing this.
Oh, okay.
There's some holes. There's some holes in my course in that I still don't have any results from my
Oh, let me see if
EQ
Cheryl.
test.
Let me see if Cheryl got it. Let me ask her right straight. But we're gonna get to all these small little things as the class goes on. Um, but there is a log that we do. We have a coaching log that we just kind of document what client, how many hours,
I did that for counseling, but I didn't. The first I'm hearing that I need to do this.
Yeah, for coaching, you still need to keep track of your clients. And once you are credentialed, like they just need to know how many hours you have in order for you to apply for different levels of like ACC, PCC, MCC, like whatever you're going for. Let me ask Cheryl. So you did take the EQ test, right?
Thought so,
Okay.
but I haven't even received a confirmation that I did it, and I don't have the link to do it again. I'm also supposed to have the link for the business class. But all I'm getting is something to change my password, and that's not making any sense to me at all. And they're saying, well, just change your password. Well, why am I changing my password? I'm trying to get into, so with the course, I have the course is one product, but I'm also supposed to have, and I can't think of what it's called right now because I don't know what's up with me today. But anyway, all I'm getting back is a link to change a password. I don't know how that lets me into a course when it's supposed to be the same login, and I don't know what's going on.
What through who's sending you the password request? Is it Successful Coaches or is it the
Let me
up coach?
see if I can find it even. I've had a bazillion emails in the last few days because I'm buying a house. Okay. So
That's
it's Launch Lab that I was supposed to have access to, and it says it's coming from Coach Cheryl. So it says to reset my password, but I don't know why I'm resetting. I'm trying to get into the Launch Lab. I don't know why I need to reset my password for that. So,
I'm gonna ask her.
and it should have come in an email already.
Okay. I asked her that. Let's see if she's online. She may or may not be. She is. So she should she's pretty quick to respond. And then if we look, I don't know if I'm able to get into it today, but in your booklet, will this close now? No, because I'm on Zoom. In your booklet, it'll give you an example. It should also, let me just ask her. She's gonna resend you your EQ results.
Okay. Oh, so they came from her, not from the exam people. Because sometimes it
Exam
depends on
people
their
send.
workflow. Like, I don't know whether it would come from her or whether it would just thank you for completing the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it came from the company. It came from the EQ company and like whatever the website was, but she's gonna resend it to you, right? And then I'm
I'm
asking
looking in my junk even, and I'm not seeing anything. No, because I had cleaned it out. So this is going back to September 9th, which is pretty much when I started.
Mhm.
In my junk, and there's nothing in there. So for whatever reason, I didn't get anything from them at all, even acknowledging that I had taken it. So if she has results, obviously it went through, but there's nothing at my end to indicate that it did.
Yeah, that's okay, because she'll send them back to you. Um,
So I was waiting to set up an appointment with her because I didn't even know for sure if whatever I had
Yeah.
done had worked.
so the good news is you could do that. You could set up that appointment with her. Um, and then let me just do this. And then uh they get access to the coach's launch lab. Oh, you had mentioned that you didn't get your login, so she sent you a password request.
But my
So
login to get into UpCoach and everything
it's
is
different. It's a different site. It sounds like when,
I'll have to look at
and
where
then,
it's.
so I would just create a new password, go in there and see what that's about. I don't know anything of it, unfortunately, so
Oh,
I
I
can't
need
help
a new
you.
password. Oh.
I think it might just be a generic link. She said that you didn't get the login, so she automatically asked for a new password for you.
Oh, okay.
That way you could
Okay.
get it. Yeah. And then she's
Try
also
again.
tonight when she gets home in UpCoach, she'll post into the group an example of the coaching log,
Okay.
just so you have an idea. So you just
Yeah.
have to keep track of them for somehow. So whatever works for you. Some people have CRMs that do it. You know, I'm still with an Excel sheet because I'm old
Yeah,
school.
I'm fine with tracking because we had to do that with counseling, but I just didn't even know I needed to go find people to coach. I figured it was all done within the class.
It is. It is, but I'm saying to you, because you're going to be coaching, you're going to go back and forth instead of having like a couple other people in here because of how this just
Right.
works. That I would suggest just getting people outside of here. And that way you could kind of just practice and see what comes up. And also that you're not getting, that you don't have one of us listening every time.
That doesn't, I'm actually a fine artist. So, and having gone through counseling training,
Okay.
I'm very accustomed to critique.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Doesn't bother me at all.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? Do you need anything else?
No, I don't know if I'm just tired or coming off of 4 hours straight counseling, or I just cannot remember the questions.
Yeah, that's okay. You also have a lot going on
Mm,
in your personal life, and it might just be showing up this way.
I'm tired.
You're tired. You get a lot. You just need to go and rest, to be honest with you.
Make a bunch of decisions. I went from $5 to now I've got to go inspect my house on Friday.
That's so great. Yay.
And I got a raise and I didn't know it.
Awesome.
Thank God.
That's great. Plus you were creating that, right? That you said that you needed to kind of elevate the income. So that's awesome.
I never thought of getting a raise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so
I
great.
wouldn't have asked.
That's so great.
So I must be hitting my numbers, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
you
don't,
do.
I never feel like I am. I always feel like I did it wrong, but
No. So there's a little bit of work for you.
yeah, yeah.
Next coaching session might be a good topic.
Yeah, it would be. Cheryl, I'm still stuck with it. Cheryl posted in the Facebook group, what do you love about yourself? And every time somebody asks me that question, I burst into tears and I don't have an answer.
Oh,
So it would, I don't want to broadside her with that one, but
well, it sounds like a gratitude journal is in effect here of every day 3 things you love about yourself and they can't be repeated.
well, that would be almost impossible to do because that's not what I was raised to believe. It's a lot to overcome.
Understood. However, that's not the truth.
Probably not. Doesn't
Okay,
it
so
feels like the truth, though.
if I had to say 3 things about you right now for you being with me, you are kind, you have really excellent hair, and you're very smart.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's the look in the mirror and do the same. You actually have amazing hair. I love it.
Thank you. Jeez, and I was just frustrated with it. You know, it's funny what we think about ourselves, right?
Yeah. And that context, you know this, that context won't change until you start changing the way the context is.
And I have to, because here goes the brain again. We emanate a vibration from our heart that either pushes or pulls.
Yeah.
Right. So I know if I don't get this in check, I'm pushing away what's for me and pulling crap. I know this here, but
Yeah.
getting
So
that penny to
one
drop.
of the things that I use at night that really has supported me, and I don't know if this is something that you'd be open to, or you may already do it. So take it if it works, leave it if it don't. But I go on YouTube and I do different waves, hertz
Sound?
music,
Yeah.
sound. And then I just discovered Joe Dispenza, like really discovered some of his work, and it's been game changer for me. He's like,
How does it work? I thought about it, but then when it goes through your speakers,
Mhm.
it's changing pitch. So it's the source through the medium to my ears is shifted.
oh,
And if it's frequency specific and it's off by half a degree, you have a different sound. So I was concerned about putting something in, and I don't know what it is because it's altered.
oh, I get that. So what if you just did it from the device and have the device close to you?
Well, I mean by the device, whatever he's using to record. So
Oh, you mean that, the recording itself. Okay.
yeah, so the recording is going through my computer,
Mhm.
which will shift sound in the same way that different computers shift color on the screen.
Oh,
And
and
so if you're not feeding the right vibration in, you're feeding in a different vibration. And I don't
Mhm.
know what that is, right? Like if he had a vibration and he wanted to emanate coherence, okay, fine. But if it shifts half a degree as it's coming through my computer, what are you sending me? What is it now, right?
So you said you're in California, right?
No,
Oh,
I'm up in Washington, but I'm on the
Washington.
coast.
So there's this guy. I'm gonna look him up. His name is, oh, what's his name now? Mark. Hold on. I gotta find him. He was a guest on my podcast, and he does sound. Mark Romero, Romero. He's out of California, so Mark Romero Music. And he plays guitar, but he does it in a way that it's the sound waves thing. If you end up getting in touch with him, see if he could create something for you where this isn't like a problem.
Okay.
And again, if this is something that even fits for you, tell him you know me and see if he could support you. He's incredible. Like he travels around the world. Like he discovered his talent by accident, and it was because he was playing his guitar somewhere, and someone who specializes in like the different music, healing music, heard him and was like, "Do you realize the I
Well, he might
guess
be on the Hebrew scale or the there's another one too in the Middle East. There's a few different scales because I'm a musician and I learned the standard note, 8 note, but there's other scales too.
wow, I never knew that. Really?
And it's a total shift in the sound. So if you listen to
Yeah.
Hebrew music or like Arab type
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
it's very, very melancholy, very minor
Yeah.
sounding compared to ours.
Oh, I never really, I like, you know, when you hear it and you recognize that there's a difference, but I never really looked into that. That's incredible.
Different,
Thank you.
yeah, it's way fewer notes.
Yeah. Hmm. So he might be something, he might be somebody that can support you, but he's based in Northern California.
Okay.
So, and he's just, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he's just incredible.
I'll
Incredible.
look into it. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, this is like you're on the right path. No stress. You have enough stress. No stress. No worries.
Well, I'm
And for
still
anyone,
between step 9 and 10, and I agreed to let go and not try to predict what 10 is gonna. I mean, I know what the outcome of 10 is, but I don't know what the how is,
yeah, the how will
right?
show up. The how will show up.
Well, like I said, I didn't think like a pay raise, didn't see that coming. I wouldn't have even asked for that. So it's good that I said I wanted an outcome without specifying it, because then I would have excluded other
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that I've added to my language is this or something greater.
Yes. Yeah. If you listen to Sue Bryce, and it turned out to be true, when you're learning manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
It's going to land on your limit, not above and not below.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think that you expanded that, but then you end up with whatever it is that you end up with, you limited it there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which
Yeah.
I went through with this settlement separation with my ex. I almost to the dollar what I came in with. I'm leaving with, which is miraculous. And in this state, it could have been a lot worse, but I should have gotten increase.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe for it. Or I can make it a lot easier than he can. So
Yeah. And
he's
the
stuck. I'm not.
and the thing is that, you know, what you're going through is really difficult. It's not easy.
Mhm.
And regardless of like circumstances and all of it, it's just easy. There's a lot of layers to it. And so the one thing that I always look at is like, how can you walk away from the experience knowing you honored yourself?
I'm gonna be
Right.
drinking tea, and what I didn't know would I be looking at the ocean
Yeah. Right?
from my living room? What the heck?
Right.
Yeah.
It's so good. But you created that. So when you're looking at those things that you're really good at and the positives about you, I would add that to the list.
Thank you.
Yeah. Definitely. So, enjoy your week.
Yes, you
Take
do.
some time for you, please.
You'll see my son this weekend. He's gonna meet me at the house. I'm gonna do the inspection because it's brand new.
Mhm.
Brand new house. So why pay another $500 at a time when money is, tight? Have somebody else do it. They just inspected everything. So I guess I'll just look at it like I'm showing my kid my house and I'm looking for anything that might need touch up.
Mhm.
It's an exciting next step.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's
Mhm.
incredible. Now, when do you close?
Well, the limit on the contract is December 11th. I'm waiting for a check from my ex-husband, because he had to get financing to buy me out.
Yeah.
And he's got so America is different than Canada. So in Canada, I would know what's going on. Down here, I'm like walking in the dark. He
Yeah.
has an inspection coming up. So I'm assuming that means he got financing, or they wouldn't be paying for that.
Yeah.
It would be a waste if he
Right.
didn't get the mortgage. So I'm assuming he did. How long they write the check after that? Are they gonna make him put it on hold in the bank? There's a lot of moving parts. I don't know. So I set the date far out, which
Good.
really distressed my seller.
Mhm.
But I don't want to be moving over the Cascade Mountains in the snow.
Yeah.
And it's dropping down into the 30s at night now.
Yeah.
A mouse in my house, which tells me it's cold out. But my husky
Yeah.
is the best mouser, so.
Oh my goodness. We have different critters that tell us when there's a drought out. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Between the
so
spiders and the alligators, we do get black widows here though. I've had one on me.
ooh,
Really
whoa.
pretty. Don't want to be near them.
Yeah. Yeah, that would scare me.
I'm not gonna miss them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, my dear, you be good and go easy on yourself, okay?
Trying.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Really.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's
I will
it's
see you in a couple of
it's
weeks.
a big transformation for me, coming from what I would have put me on the autism spectrum even 8 months ago. So to be able to sit and be quiet is a huge thing. Like whatever that compulsion was, to be able to sit and be quiet is crazy.
Yeah. It's
So
great.
yeah, there's progress. I got a ways to go, but there's
Yeah.
progress.
You're doing great. You're doing
Thank
great.
you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
All right. You need anything, reach out. And then otherwise we will see you on the 14th.
All right.
Okay. Be
Be well.
good. Good luck.
All
All right.
right.
Bye.